ending.
Welcome back, movie fans, to another fun-filled trivia video. Let's dive into Event Horizon, one of the creepiest space horror films that still holds up till today. Now sit back and turn on those magnetic boots as I rapid-fire the facts. And as always, if you learned something new today, consider liking and subscribing to help support my small channel. Here we go. Director Paul W.S. Anderson's initial cut of the film ran 130 minutes and was quite graphically violent, so much so that both test audiences and the studio balked at the finished product. Paramount ordered him to cut the film by 30 minutes and tone down some of the violence, a decision he now regrets, as he didn't have enough time to properly re-edit and therefore believes he cut out 10 minutes too much. The rotational shot of the space station over Earth at the beginning of the film took nearly a third of the film's visual effects budget. The script originally described the Gateway machine as a smooth and featureless black orb, 10 meters in diameter, suspended in mid-air between large, rotating mechanical arms. It was also said to contain a stable black hole within at all times, which the ship used as a power source, as opposed to briefly creating a temporary one. Paul W.S. Anderson decided to redesign it to involve interlocking circles as a homage to the puzzle box in Hellraiser, 1987. The visions from hell and the ship's video log were inspired by works from 16th century Renaissance painters, which the director saw while he was touring art galleries with his production designer. Anderson was fascinated by these paintings, as the makers clearly believed in the reality of hell as the complete antithesis of heaven, and the images they created were terrifying and beautiful at the same time. Anderson said that these scenes were filmed at the end of the production with a smaller unit, so studio executives probably never bothered to screen them beforehand, thinking they were just insert shots. He stated that when the executives saw a screening of the rough edit, they were very shocked, and some even fainted. The spacesuits worn by the actors weighed 65 pounds or 30 kilograms each. Lawrence Fishburne nicknamed his Doris. Due to the weight, standing upright in them for longer periods could lead to back injury, but sitting down was not possible either due to the backpack. Special hanging poles were constructed on the set so the actors could rest on them between takes. Although the film met with mostly negative reviews and a disappointing box office result at the time of its release, it amassed a considerable cult following over the years. Director Paul W.S. Anderson said that the movie's cult status was predicted to him years before by Kurt Russell. Anderson screened Event Horizon before they started work on Soldier, 1998, and Russell said, "Forget about what this movie's doing now. In 15 years' time, this is going to be the movie you're glad you made." A similar instance happened with John Carpenter's The Thing, 1982. There were 3 different alternate endings also filmed. In the first ending, Miller fights with Weir in the core. This version didn't have the jump scare at the end when the 3 survivors are found by another rescue crew and Stark hallucinates that she sees Weir. Instead, Stark hears screams of the Event Horizon crew and screams in fear before Cooper wakes her up. This was the original ending of the movie and it was included in the shooting script. In the second ending, Miller fights with the Burning Man from his visions at the core instead of with Weir, but it was changed because the audience of the second test screening didn't like it. The third ending that was used in the final cut is a combination of the first 2 endings. Instead of fighting the Burning Man, Miller fights with Weir, and the jump scare was included at the very end of the movie. In one script version, it is revealed that the Event Horizon's computer still thinks that the year is 2040 instead of 2047, as if time on the ship had stopped in the 7 years that it was missing. Weir initially thinks that the intense gravitational fields from the ship's core may have affected the passage of time, but later, while under the ship's influence, he says that the true nature of the black hole is that it is absolute and eternal nothing, and that, if God is everything, then I have seen the devil. In the climax, the dark power takes the form of Weir, claiming that it is not the devil, being much, much older, and that, I watched the beginning and I will see the end. I am the dark behind the stars. I am the dark inside you all. For his final scenes, Sam Neill would come to the studio at 3 a.m. so that he could spend 7 to 8 hours in makeup. Philip Eisner's first draft of the script involved an infestation of tentacle-type aliens who had come back with the ship when it had crossed their planet or dimension. When director Paul W.S. Anderson was approached, he liked the haunted house in space concept of the movie, but he felt it was too similar to Alien 1979. Envisioning something more like The Haunting of 1963 or The Shining of 1980 in space, he had the source of the evil change from aliens to something more supernatural and diabolical. Jolie Richardson's character was originally written for a man. However, during auditions, director Paul W.S. Anderson had the part read by both men and women. He chose Richardson because of the British stage class that she would bring to the movie and thought it would be fun to then douse her with gallons of blood. The original script had a sequence near the end where Stark repairs the gravity tanks on the Event Horizon for the survivors' escape, but one of them fills with blood, and a partially regenerated Dr. Weir without skin appears inside. He breaks out and chases Stark, who flees and falls down a ladder into a room below. Weir follows, climbing down the same ladder upside down. This scene was actually filmed but omitted from the movie. Weir's upside down walk was inspired by the infamous spider walk sequence from the extended version of The Exorcist, 1973. The alternate opening, dubbed the Lucky Strike scene, was storyboarded but not filmed. It would have introduced the crew of the Lewis and Clark while they were salvaging a ship called the Lucky Strike, with one of its crew members ejected from an airlock and subsequently rescued. The scene was not filmed for budgeting and pacing reasons, but the director liked the idea of the airlock scene so much that he revived it later in the movie with Jack Noseworthy's character. The tool that Miller uses to keep the door seal open while he rescues Stark is a Halligan tool, a tool used by rescue crews. It is an unusual tool to be found in space vessels. 1 year after the film's release, John Goldwyn, head of production at Paramount, admitted to Anderson that he felt the film had not been properly released. The studio wanted him to make the longer version he always intended. For some time, Anderson and producer Jeremy Bolt worked on a director's cut. They traveled the world to locate the original footage, which some of was found in the strangest of places, for example, in an abandoned Transylvanian salt mine. However, they quickly realized that much of the original footage had been either destroyed, stored, and then discarded, or its location had not been documented. Of the stock that was retrieved, much of it had been badly archived and was otherwise degraded. Paul W.S. Anderson's initial rough cut submitted to the MPAA received the Kiss of Death NC-17 rating. Philip Eisner wrote the movie after a family tragedy. He had recently entered a multi-picture writing agreement, and in an effort to force himself to get back to work, he pitched the idea of The Shining in space to the studio, which was very receptive. Unfortunately, he had no detailed treatment yet, and the subject matter blended with his emotional state to inspire a prolonged bout of writer's block. The studio executive who had originally brought him on board, now a personal friend, helped keep Eisner on track, and the eventual first draft was enthusiastically received. From greenlight to completion, the film took 10 months, an unusually short time for such a complex and effects-driven film. The Event Horizon was named after the theoretical boundaries surrounding a black hole can escape because the escape velocity is greater than the speed of light. Technically, it is where the physical universe ends and the physical laws no longer apply, so the ship's name is symbolic for its journey beyond the borders of the known universe. The model of the Event Horizon includes a complete X-Wing from Star Wars as part of the antennae array. The model is visible on the lower portion of the Event Horizon during the first flyby by the Lewis and Clark. Paul W.S. Anderson was offered the movie on the strength of the box office success of his previous film, Mortal Kombat 1995. He had to turn down the opportunity to direct X-Men of 2000, The X-Files 1998, and Alien Resurrection 1997. The shot where Sam Neill stares out a window, which then pulls back to reveal he's on a deck of a spaceship orbiting the Earth, took the digital special effects house Cinesite 10 weeks to achieve. The shot lasts for only 45 seconds. Clive Barker, whose movie Hellraiser of 1987 was a huge influence on the film and was consulted on the project during pre-production. Writer Philip Eisner visited the set while the spacesuit sequences were being filmed. The suits were so heavy, the actors risked back injuries, prompting Lawrence Fishburne to stop between takes, pointing at Eisner and shouting mock angrily, You Eisner, you did this to me." This movie was produced entirely in the UK, including the special effects. Paul W.S. Anderson chose not to direct Mortal Kombat Annihilation 1997 to work on this film. The editing phase was cut from 10 weeks to 6 weeks after Paul W.S. Anderson promised to deliver the film in time for additional post-production and an August 1997 release, as Paramount had no other blockbuster movies scheduled for that period. However, when editing was to begin, Anderson was still working 7 days a week to shoot the final scenes for the movie, leaving him a mere 4 weeks to oversee the hectic editing process. He described the initial test screenings as disastrous. He stated that it didn't go well at all, and that this was the first time he'd walk into a room with 350 people, and in the end, they just didn't like it. Or, some people liked it passionately, but not enough. The film had to be hastily recut and shortened by 30 minutes, and within 1 week to meet the deadline for a second screening, but Anderson later said that there simply was not enough time to make rational, well-thought-out decisions. As a result, he feels that the finished film was too short, and it could have been better if he had had more time to really fix the film. The FBFX created costumes of John Mallow's original spacesuit designs included many practical features, such as an integrated filter blower system in the bottom of the portable life support system into the helmet to keep the visor clear and the actor cool, thousands of LEDs that pulsated rhythmically to indicate life support functionality, with a secret panic mode switch to quicken the pace when the plot required it, and also industrial magnets embedded in the soles of the boots to add to the realism of scenes requiring active magnetic boots. Due to the rush production, filming was hard on the crew, but the actors also had their own problems. Jolie Richardson later said that the script was incomprehensible and that none of the actors really understood it or the nature of the other dimension, but they were happy enough to work with each other to sign on. Extensive special effects work, bulky suits, and fake blood and makeup took a toll on the cast, and there were so many accidents on set, such as Richardson and Sam Neill being knocked out by a badly timed explosion and several injuries, that they felt that the movie itself was cursed. Arnold Schwarzenegger, Tommy Lee Jones, and Bruce Willis were considered for the role of Captain Miller. Scott Glenn and Bill Pullman turned down the role for Dr. William Weir. There is a director cameo at around 3 minutes during the opening dream sequence. A book floats past the camera featuring a picture of the director and his name. The director himself jokes about this detail in the DVD commentary, saying its autobiography title, Paul Anderson, A Life. The rotating corridor, nicknamed the meat grinder, that separates the gravity drive from the rest of the ship is supposed to represent the 9 circles of hell from Dante's poem Inferno. It leads into the very center of hell, represented by the gravity drive itself. It turned out to be the most problematic set piece to film. Only shots with a fixed camera could be done, since camera operators became disoriented and unable to keep the camera steady. Lawrence Fishburne could not perform his run through the tunnel in one take due to the same problem. The final scene was compromised of several shorter takes. For Jason Isaacs' death scene, the plan was originally for his entrails to still be attached to him as he hung over them. Isaacs was then supposed to raise his head, showing that he was still alive, then prompting Lawrence Fishburne's character to shoot him in the head to put him out of his misery. At around an hour 25 minutes, the filming of the gravity drive on fire caused a real fire that partially destroyed the set. A different set had to be built quickly while the old one was being repaired. In the end, the repaired set was only used for an additional day of filming. There were many deleted scenes from the original 130-minute long rough draft. I have listed them in the details section if you want to read about them. The visual body count for the movie was 3. DJ, Smith, and Peters. Miller and Weir disappear into a black hole, and Cooper, Justin, and Stark survive to be rescued. Body parts of the original crew, who consisted of 18 members, are seen throughout the film, but since their deaths occur off-screen, they were not included. If it is assumed that all the original crew members have died, the full body count would be 21. I've never been an extremely squeamish horror fan, but this one has scenes that still haunt me till this day. Let me know in the comments if you were a fan of this movie, and if you think the director should have been allowed to release his original uncut version. And until next time, keep watching that cinema, and stay cool, guys.